January 1st of 2024. So the first drawing I made last year was just hands. I spent the beginning of last year drawing a lot of hands. I was just on that daily grind, you know. One thing I used to do pretty often was I would reuse references. So I'd take a hand reference today and then I'd use it again in like 3 days so I could see my exact progress on the exact same reference on a day-by-day basis. So I was doing a bunch of these hand studies, but unfortunately this entire period of me trying to practice my hands, trying to get good at hands, this entire period ended up being basically a waste of time. And that's because, you see, the way I would practice is I would take a reference, a hand reference, and I'd break it down to try and understand the proportions and the structures and everything, and then I'd try to recreate it on my own, which is pretty standard on its own, but I don't know, I just kind of felt off because my end goal was to get good at drawing hands. Okay, so how do I achieve that? By doing all these hand studies, right? But I just kind of felt like there was a few middle steps that I was skipping and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And it wasn't until a while later that I actually kind of figured out what it was I was missing. But, you know, regardless, after a few weeks of practicing this thing, I saw a bit of improvement in my hand drawings, which is kind of cool. Now, this is around the time of my last progress video. And in there, it started off that previous year making stuff like this to making stuff like this. And I thought the progress was pretty okay, but I wanted more. I wanted 2024 to be my greatest ever artistic year, which happened. Kind of happened. It's kind of complicated, okay? Anyway, I'm gonna show you all the good art and the bad art I've made over the past year. So there's a very specific reason that I started last year off with drawing a lot of hands, and that's because what's one of the most telltale signs of a really incredible artist? Their arms. Like, if you can draw arms really cool in detail and stuff, I just know that you're built different. So I wanted to obviously learn how to draw crazy good arms, but I figured it would be weird to be able to draw good arms but still suck at hands, so that's kind of why I started with hands. So when time came to start focusing on arms, I decided to approach it a lot differently, because there's two main things I really wanted to understand, which is the shape of the arm in different scenarios as well as the anatomy of the arm. So I spent the first, I think maybe 1 or 2 weeks really working on getting the shape down, really working on getting the taper, the asymmetrical balance between straight and curves, you know, the basic proportions, that kind of thing. And after I felt confident in that, I began to delve in a lot deeper into the anatomy of the arm. So I watched a bunch of videos on how to draw the major muscles of the arm, and I did a lot of studies where I was trying to actively utilize the knowledge that I gained. One of the things I used to do was I used to take a reference, I'd break down the muscular anatomy of it, and then I would draw the arm from a muscular standpoint kind of, and then I would draw the actual arm. So I had like a 3-step process. That was completely unnecessary. I have no idea why I made it so complicated for no reason, but yeah, it got me feeling a lot more comfortable with my arm drawings, so that's kind of cool. And one of my favorite things to do was maybe once or twice a week, I would make drawings that were very arm centric. So not necessarily arm studies, but drawings where the arms were very prominent, so that I could kind of like solidify what I learned. Which is kind of cool. I remember this being a really good time in the year, artistically speaking. I felt like I was learning stuff pretty good, and taking this much more structured and intentional approach to practicing arms is really what I was missing when I was doing hands. So yeah, just how it is, I guess. So at around the start of March, I was extremely excited, and that's because I knew I was about to experience my most transformative progress of the entire year. And that's because I decided to finally lock in and learn how to shade, because all my life I've never really added that much like shading to any of my drawings, which sucks because that's really the thing that makes drawings pop, really makes it, you know, 3-dimensional and all that. So I was super excited to finally start learning it, but there was a bit of a problem, which is that I didn't really know where to start. I mean, I did all the basic stuff like learning the basic value categories and practicing on spheres and cylinders and that kind of thing, which is obviously super important, but at some point I just sat there and went, man, like, okay, sure, I can shade a sphere, I guess, but where do I go from here? Like, what do I actually do from here? Do I just jump right into doing more complex stuff? I mean, I did try that. I did a few portraits, which actually turned out a little bit better than I thought they would, except this one right here. I remember when I was doing this, I was so zoned in when I was doing it. By the time I realized that her head was way too big proportionate to the rest of her body, it was already like I was already in too deep. It was already too late. So I guess going from shapes to portraits was too big of a jump. I just felt like there was more light theory that I needed to learn before going into all of this. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'll get a course, like a shading course, and just follow that to an absolute T. So I don't have to worry about like all that. All I need to do is just focus on the course and I know I'll be good. So by this point, I'd come across Brent Eviston, who seems to kind of be the shading guy. And so I took his Skillshare class on shading. And so I just went, bro, chapter by chapter, brick by brick, building up my shading fundamental skills. I was drawing like toys and fruits and stuff like that, which is actually really fun. I remember having a good time doing a lot of these. I remember liking how a lot of them were turning out. So after finishing the shading course, I began to do some stuff on my own. And when I started off, that was not good. Like, these are the first things I did on my own, which I as you can see, I just stopped because I really disliked them. I was like, damn, bro, I'm so cooked. I can't do anything on my own. But I just kind of kept going. And I just got used to this whole thing. And I was just like practicing, bro. I was so kind of amazed. I was like, yo, I can actually make drawings look this three-dimensional. Yo, that's crazy. I was happy with it. And obviously sometimes there was the occasional drawing that I didn't like this right here. But, you know, it's just part of the game for real. And I did some stuff on my tablet as well. I did some value distillation studies, which is where you take a reference and just break it down into two values. I mean, I only did two of them, but I always like these are always really cool to do. And so one thing I really realized is that it's so much harder to shade digitally because it's a lot harder to control the values with precision, at least in comparison to using a pencil. At least for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, but at least for me. So I had to like rewind and do a lot simpler stuff. Like I went back to doing a bunch of shapes and stuff on my tablet just to understand how to make values work on digital. So that's a thing. I had to get past that learning curve, which sucks. So after a while, after I felt I'd got comfortable enough with shading and values and all that stuff, all the pieces from my grand plan were now finally in place. Because one of the main reasons I practiced shading was because the end goal, because first of all, it's cool. It's like a basic fundamental, but my end goal was to be able to make fully rendered digital art. Right, so therefore I would need to learn a lot about color, and then once I learn a lot about color, I can combine it with my knowledge of values and lighting and stuff, and bam, I can make some cool art, right? So just like with shading, I decided to just take an online class. I decided to take a Marco Bucci Skillshare class. Now he's obviously a YouTuber, you probably know him. Maybe, I don't know. He just seems to know a lot about color from his YouTube videos, and I really like his art style as well. So I knew that he was my guy, right? And so following along with him, this was the first thing I ever made. Now, it's obviously not the most detailed piece of all time, but my goal here was really just to understand the decision making that goes behind the coloring process. That's really the only thing, that's really the main thing I wanted to fully understand. And despite this being my first ever time really delving into color, learning about color, the thing with color is that a lot of it, once you learn it, it's super intuitive. It makes a lot of sense. It's not some alien concept, which is strange because I always felt like color was this massive thing. So as I was following along with the course, of course, we began to run into a couple problems. You see, this was all mostly happening in the summer. And the summer that I had, bro, I absolutely despised it, especially in like July and August. And that's because I hardly made any art because I was like, I traveled and stuff like that. And so I decided to kind of take a bit of a step back from drawing, which was completely unnecessary. I wasn't burnt out or anything and the main reason I say that is because after the summer, like towards the end of August, I was finding it hard to kind of gain consistency with drawing again, which sucks. But obviously I've made a video or two on this exact subject on consistency and motivation and discipline and stuff like that. So I knew the actions that I needed to take to kind of get back on track. But this is really when it dawned on me that art is really all just a momentum game, because staying consistent with drawing is the easiest thing of all time. Staying consistent is like light work. That's the funnest part of the entire thing. But getting consistent at drawing, like that initial push to gain momentum, that's really the hard part. Which is why, although I said at the start of the video, this has been my best year artistically, it still kind of feels like, bro, I wasted so much time. I could be at least 3-4 months ahead of where I am right now, which again sucks, but you know, messing up like this is just part of the game, really. So after kind of getting out of that rut, I was doing a bunch of these color keys, which are basically color studies without too much focus on the details. I really just wanted to try and make the colors make sense to me, and at first I really didn't like them. This is the first one that I did, and it just looked so plasticky and yellow and just ugh. And there's a bunch of them that I kind of left unfinished, but I just kind of kept going and I just had to get used to it. It took some time to get used to it, but you know. But like if you zoom in on some, like this one right here, if you zoom in on it, I mean, you can tell that these are leaves, but they're not good leaves. This is not good foliage, bro. But like if I zoom out on this, it's like, oh wow, the colors look natural. That was really the whole goal with these. Obviously during this period as well, in between here, I was making a bunch of sketches, still making a bunch of drawings. Just sketching is fun, bro. And some of these are just kind of like nighttime sketches, like right here. These are just stuff I'm making right before going to bed, just like really not caring that much, bro. I was just sketching. Sketching is fun, bro. Sketching without a care in the world. That's like one of the funnest parts of drawing. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of re-record. I'm re-recording the rest of the yeah. Anyway, so in a lot of November, but mainly in December, I decided to try and really make a lot of stuff, both traditionally and digitally, so I could compare it to what I made earlier in the year. So we started with the good old sketchbook right here. I made a few pages here that I actually liked, but then I went through a period, I don't know if you guys have ever had this too, but like a period where you just kind of suck more than you usually do. Cause I went through like a few pages here where like my pencil was not obeying me for some reason. I don't know what it was, but I remember just not liking any of these drawings. That I wanted to fully like shade them all in, but I just didn't. I just kind of gave up on them. Just, I don't know. It's really strange. I don't know. This period of being out of form, I guess. I don't know what it is. And I had and it was just weird. Like I remember this here. I really didn't like this page, this drawing, but I liked this one. I like doing this thing where I fully like do a drawing, but I don't do the hair. I just kind of leave the hair as it is. I just kind of like the way it looks. Maybe that's just me being lazy. I don't know. But yeah, kind of part of me felt like, yo, it's the end of the year. I'm supposed to like all of my art, but like, no, bro, it's not how it works. So hey, it's what it is. But yeah, actually, at the end of the day, I still liked most of this art. It was super fun to make drawings that I know me from a year ago would have been like, yo, bro, that's so cool. And I just think that's kind of cool. Oh, I like most of these, even though here some details are a bit weird. I still skip hands. I gotta stop. I gotta actually stop skipping hands, bro. I didn't even fill up the sketchbook this year. That's kind of crazy. So in terms of the digital art that I've made, I mean, I started off by doing more cell shaded stuff, just because I remember not liking any of these, just because I felt like cell shading would be a lot easier than it actually ended up being. They're not that bad though, I guess. I'm still unsure of the exact art style I want to go for. I've never really paid much attention to art style or anything like that. Anyway, out of everything I made in the past like month and a half, this right here is probably my least favorite, just because the car looks weird, the shirt looks weird. I don't know, they were hard to do and it just kind of made me mad, bro. This right here is the first one that I did. So as you can see, it's slightly unfinished. Okay, it's kind of really unfinished, and this is a habit that I have. I just don't finish my art, bro. Like I need to do in her eyelashes, and it looks kind of muddy in some places. Sometimes I do something, like I make some art, and once I get the basic idea down of what I want it to look like, I just don't feel like adding in all the other details, and I just kind of want to move on to the next one. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or neither. I don't know, but I need to start actually finishing my art, bro. Jeez. So yeah, I did a couple more. I realized that I'm very slow at art. I take forever to make art, bro. Here, I skipped there's supposed to be a card design, but I skipped them just because, bro. I don't know. You know how throughout this video I've had kind of moments where I realized, like for example, I realized I was practicing hands wrong, or I realized that I didn't know how to proceed with shading. I was kind of confused for a period of time. I feel like I'm kind of in that spot right now because when I paint, right, I have a decent understanding of how the colors situation is going to work. I understand the values situation and all that stuff, but the actual, I don't know, like technique, I guess, brushwork, I don't know what exactly it is, but it still feels like there's some more stuff I need to learn to make the paintings look cleaner and finished and all that stuff. But it's cool. Like, I know I'm gonna figure it out eventually. At least, no, like I feel like in a couple days or weeks I'll figure out what it is I'm supposed to do or whatever. As I said, it's like it's been my best art year, but again, I'm so pissed off because I had that 3-ish month period where I literally didn't draw, so that sucks. But it's also kind of exciting because it means that if I don't have that kind of thing happen again this year, then I'm gonna get a lot better this year than I did last year. So that's kind of cool. This, bro, I gotta have my absolute greatest year artistically, and I'm saying this on camera, so it kind of would suck if I didn't have that. So when I make the sequel to this video next year, let me know if you think I got it.